My name is Jonathan Harrison. I'm a D.o.P and a specialist lighting consultant. I started this industry at the BBC as a film projectionist and worked my way up through the industry, learnt the trade. So I became first a film cameraman and then moved on to the electronic world that we're in now. I've travelled around the world for many, many years, shooting big documentaries, documentary series, drama, done some commercial work. I just love it. It's somebody wants to pay for me to travel around the world, see the world and learn about life and tell stories about life. That's what I love doing. My work as a consultant is quite varied actually. I get asked to either do presentations or masterclasses, but I also get asked to do lighting booths. Like I've lit the booth here at SONY at IBC. I also get involved in design and lighting of studios, from big broadcast studios to universities to small internet studios and things like that. So it's extremely varied but exciting because every event brings a challenge, especially things like this. Lighting is everything. Lighting matters. It's emotive, it's descriptive, it has a huge psychological effect on the viewer. A lot of people just turn lights on to make the camera see, that's illumination, that's not lighting. Looking at what light does, how it affects the viewer, how you paint with light, the texture of light, the color of light, the volume of light, the direction of light, it all tells stories. And the art of my art, part of my art is actually telling a story with the light, not just the script, but the light and the emotive reaction to your audience. Every project is a challenge, is understanding what the script or the producer wants to get out of it, translating that accurately in terms of the emotion of what the viewer sees is what I love doing. One of the biggest problems we have in life is human communication. More and more people doing everything electronically, faceless, nameless, anonymous. Creating this sort of stuff is raw, straight out of the heart, as it were, because you've got to communicate with the color, the texture, the emotion, and trying to get that right. And all the intricacies are the interesting bits, because most people could illuminate this to a reasonable level, but it's subtle little things like backlights on the keyboard. There's a curtain behind me, but what most people probably don't see is just a little bit of light coming underneath, as if there's a doorway there and some light coming underneath it. Just subtle little bits and pieces, like there's a picture up there that I've just gently framed with a DP2. Put the hard edges round and then just slightly defocused it, so unless you run your hand through the light, you don't see it's on. But when you take the light away, you realize that it's a dark hole there. And it's all these little subtleties in what I call the grammar of lighting. It's like a book. Every paragraph has subtleties in the wording. You change one word and it changes the whole meaning of the page. You change the color of this from tungsten to daylight, it changes the whole meaning of the piece. And that's where the excitement of creating an image is. You never get it perfect, but we strive for perfection. But it's all the subtleties that make the difference. And tools like this, especially the Dedo lights, allow you that control and the subtlety in terms of your interpretation of what the script or what the producer wants. Once you've got an idea in your head, it's not something you can almost write on paper. You have a fantasy in your head of this warm, cozy jazz club that you can hear the music in the background, you can hear the clink of glasses, you can hear the musicians in the back room just noodling and warming up, and you've got to have the right equipment and the right tools to do a job with. They always say a bad craftsman always blames his tools. I can never blame these tools, Kino Flow, Dedo Light. In terms of the tools, they're perfect. It's down to the user and me as a verbal interpreter into images. It's down to me to use these tools well and in the right way to actually create the image, the emotion, and a picture that is pleasing to the eye. We're at IBC 2013 and we're on the SONY stand, and this particular set is a jazz club. The whole idea of this is that Sony they've got 14 top-end cameras here, and the whole idea is to generate a set and a feeling and emotion so that it can show the cameras to the best ability. The whole idea of being able to create a mood, a contrast, and different colors and textures so that people can come and play with the cameras, look at the cameras, and look what it can achieve. Planning these sort of sets is very much like a drama. You have to understand what the client wants or the script requires in terms of its emotional message. I didn't get any words. They just said, it's a jazz club. In fact, all they said was, it's a set with some musicians. Then I find out it's jazz musicians. And so you have to use your experience in life to think about, what does a jazz club feel like? What's the emotion in a jazz club? It's warm, it's moody. If it's an old style jazz club, this will probably be full with smoke and beams and shafts of light. You can see I've put full CTO on these lights to give it a warm orange feel, so it feels emotionally cozy, and that you've got an intimate audience, you've got shadows, light and shade and different colors, and just a textural mix of light, shade, warm and interesting colors. So it's effectively turning words into an emotion with light. A D.o.P's job is to turn effectively words into a picture, an emotional picture. And once you understand what picture you want to portray, you have to work back to what lighting instruments you need to do that. And so from deciding I want this warm, an overall feel of warmth, you're going to need fairly large soft sources of light to give an overall balance of warm light. But then you want pools of light, which means you're going to need something that gives you shafts of light. So you're looking at luminaires, which will give you harder shaft and defined shafts of light. And then looking at color, how are you going to generate the color? And that sort of plot sort of develops, and well, any D.o.P will tell you that a set is never finished. There's always something, you just need one more Dedo light just to put an accent here or somewhere. It's endless, but in general, you decide the shape of it, what instruments you're going to use, and that's how you make your list of equipment. I needed two types of light, hard light and soft light. I needed energy efficient as well, because the guys don't want to burn an awful lot of power here. We want to keep it relatively cool because people sitting here for quite a long time playing instruments, they don't want hot, hard large Fresnels, making them sweat. This is a trade show as well, and so you have to put that into account. But I needed efficient, large sources, broad sources, which I've used the Kinoflow Imara 10s. A lot of light, equivalent to, I suppose, about a 5K with diffusion on it, and that gives me the overall broad, warm wash across here. And then the smaller pools of light, I've used the Dedo DLH4s, which gives me crisp, clean light control with the barn doors. These are only 150 watts, but they're extremely punchy. Where I've needed stronger lights, I've used the 650 watts Dedo Light 650s, because the minute you start putting gel filters on lights, you lose a lot of output. And depending on the volume and size of light, I've had to make a decision on whether I need 150 watts, although the 150 gives you the equivalent almost of an old-fashioned 500 watt Fresnel because of the efficiency of it. So all the spots I've used a combination of 650 and 150 watt spots. I've had for things like the pictures, I've needed accurate control with the DP1 with either gobos or the DP2 with shutters, just to give little vignettes of light, not to splatter light everywhere. I mean, a lot of people would just light this and illuminate it just with a bit of warm light and put a few maybe par cans or something. I wanted something a little more subtle than that, just to accent. The beauty of the DP1s, DP2s, you can accent things really subtly without spreading light everywhere. But also on the piano, I needed something punchy to bounce into the bottom of the piano so it glows as well. And also underneath the piano, you can probably see is that there's a little blue glow hovering it off the ground. This is not the best floor for it, but just hiding a 2-foot blue Kinoflow underneath the piano. I'm hoping that the guy who owns the piano doesn't see it and it's not melted the underneath of his soundboard of the piano, but it's all the little accent and the colours, and all this stuff just works so well and efficiently. Low power output, high colour quality, and it's just really nice tools to work with as well. D.o.Ps are classic control freaks. We have any light source will illuminate, but the minute you have control over it, you start lighting. You're taking tubes of light, cones of light, blocks of light, and painting where you want the light to go, not just letting it spread everywhere. And you do that with honeycombs and grids and high quality barn doors that control your light in a space instead of having it spread everywhere. And so you're effectively zoning light. There must be probably about 30 lights up here, but it's not completely flat. What you're doing is pasting a general overall light level with the larger soft lights, but then you're sitting that down in the camera so that you put slightly hotter spots of colored light, so this actually gives you your accents and your pools of light. And if you put pools of light and mix that with a slightly lower level of soft light, you end up with slightly brighter patches that gives you a feeling of slightly a secluded little pool of light coming from one area and maybe another area. So you've got light and shade. You've got to have light and shade, and the texture is created by the overall softness, but then the shafts of controlled light from the Dedos, either with the 8-leaf barn doors, or you've got the DP2, either with an iris in it or with the shutters that can accurately and surgically control your light exactly where you want it to go. It's not just a case of a big paint roller, it's a beautiful fine bristle brush that you've actually painted gently exactly where you want the light to go. And these tools allow you to do that. This is a trade show. It needs to be warm and comfortable. I have lit these before with daylight, and it has a different emotional effect. This is warm and cozy. I've used the Kinoflow Vista 600 with tungsten bulbs and full CTO on them. This gives me, as you can see, a pretty warm, in fact a very rich warm skin tone. This warm skin tone affects people. It makes them feel cozy, and I've picked out other colours with the Dedos, the 650s and the 150s, with specific warmer tones. You notice I've not used green. I'm not a great colour fan of green. Okay, cyans and things, but green, I tend not to use green too much, because for me green and skin don't go together. It's one of those things that I've just got not a phobia about, but I've just seen it used badly. You can use, but in this environment I have no control over these cameras, so whatever they're seeing, I hope I've created fairly accurately through using the colour on the lights. Whereas if I was lighting just straight with tungsten, I could generate this warmth with the settings in the camera. But here I have no control, so everything I've had to do is with light control, filter control, and placement of the lights to give you light and shade across the whole set. The light sources I've used here are typical larger Kinoflow fluorescent sources, broad, soft but directional, and the typical classic tungsten light source from Dedo, the 650s and the 150 watt. I could have used LED. Now, at the moment, to get this volume of light out of, and quality of light out of an LED source, I'm not convinced by all manufacturers yet. Partly because of the output and getting consistency of colour across the whole range. There's some fabulous small PAR style LED light sources for rock and roll and theatre, absolutely stunning. But photographically, there's still a way to go with LED. Companies like Kinoflow, like Dedo Light, and one or two other manufacturers, they're getting there. The output, the control, and the quality is crucial. And getting this in these larger sources is difficult at the moment. I'm sure it will come. But the other issue is focusing lights with enough power. And the minute you start putting colored gels on lights, depending what the spectrum is, you end up with very little coming out the front. So yes, I would have liked to have used LED, but at the end of the day, it's going to take quite some time to get that level of power out of a light and the quality of light that I need to render clean pictures. Power consumption here is running off, I think, less than 32 amps. It's probably more like 16 or 18 amps. That is all. Pretty low consumption. I've got 4 large Vista beams, 6 DLH 650s, and the rest are all 150 watts. So it's partly the efficiency of the Kinoflows, the definite efficiency of the 150 watts that give me the light output without the power consumption. It's important that you actually do the maths and work out what your power consumption is, how much light you need, because using traditional tungsten that are really, really inefficient. Power output here is quite interesting because the efficiency of the Kinoflows and the definite efficiency of the Dedo lights, there's equivalent of about 10 kilowatt total here. If I'd lit this with tungsten, I would have probably need to about 60 or 70 kilowatts of traditional tungsten light to get this look. So that is a huge saving in terms of the overall light level, heat level, and there's air conditioning to think about as well. It's also a trade show. You don't want to have an area that is steaming hot with 70 kilowatts of light. So it's great to work with these tools because they're cool, low power consumption, pleasant to work under, and they're actually nice tools to work with as well.